Good day. Once again, welcome to another edition of An Issue of Faith, where we sit back and we discuss faith in our lives, how our faith affects our careers, and how faith is the foundation of everything we do. Today, we have Miss Alma Flowers. Miss Flowers is a registered nurse, and she has done over 30 years in mental health nursing. She is the former regional director of the Union of Black Episcopalians and also the former president of the Union of Black Episcopalians, Sidney Parker chapter here in Jacksonville at St. Philip's Episcopal Church. Welcome, Miss Flowers.
Thank you.
All right. So I'd like for you to give us some background. Full disclosure, this is my mother. So therefore, I know things about her that I will never disclose, but I also want her to tell you about just her humble upbringing. You grew up in a very small town with a very large family. So tell us how that was, and especially growing up in the Middle South or the Deep South with in a Baptist, I would say, a Baptist environment.
I grew up in a family of 12. I'm number 11 of 12. My mom and my dad both were uneducated, but raised 12 children in a 2-bedroom house with an outhouse, for all of you who don't know what an outhouse is. We had no running water, no electricity, and we survived. And we survived because of my mother, who had a deep faith, and it took me the longest to understand that that's the one thing that you can always count on is your faith and your relationship with God. So that's what got me through high school, having a child before I went to nursing school, through nursing school, and through my career. So faith has played an important part of my life and still does.
I like the way that you said a relationship, right? Because most people don't understand that is what faith is based on. It's a personal relationship between you and your God. Now, like I said, I remember those days down in Central Florida in Haines City. Shout out to Polk County. I remember all of those days when we were kids. It was like a family reunion every summer. You know, you take us down and then you drop us off and you get your break and you drive off. You're my father. I remember seeing you guys drive off, smiling faces, waving, see you in 6 weeks. And it was a break for you guys, but it was absolutely a time for us to bond into a family with all of my first cousins and second cousins and aunts and uncles. But I know one thing for certain and two things for sure. Daisy Bell Flowers knew at 10:45 on Sunday morning, you better be in church.
Exactly.
You better be in church
There was no excuse to miss church. There was no excuse that you could give my mother that you didn't feel like going to church. And as I said, I've always known that there was a God. I've always feared that there was a God that could strike me dead at any moment. I did not understand until years and years later that God, you have to form a relationship with him before you're able to do anything. Because I remember my brother that was next to me, and I would be laughing at my mom when she's in the kitchen and talking like you and I are talking, and we'd say, who's mom talking to? It's nobody in that kitchen but her. But she would be talking to God. And as I got older and had my trials and fell on my face and got up again, to understand that until I had that relationship with God to let him know I know that he is my Father and that he will bring me through anything. And when you have that kind of relationship, then you're able to do things that you never thought you could do. I read a book a while back on doing the incredible with ordinary people.
All right.
And the book was, Here I Am, Lord, send somebody else. But when you step out on faith
All right.
and you have no ground to step on except God,
Right.
then you realize that's why I'm here. And as I was just saying, I'm heading toward the 90s, and I am the last of my siblings.
Right.
I'm the only one alive. And about 10 years ago, I stopped asking God why,
Okay.
because he has a purpose for me.
Absolutely.
So I don't ask why anymore. I just continue to do his will
Now, you alluded to falling on your face
many times.
many times. So, answer me this: when did and I'd like to know myself, because I remember you dragging me off to the Episcopal Church when I was younger. The only reason I really liked it was because we were in and out in an hour. Oh, and we got to drink wine in church. So, as
Yes.
a teenager or a young man, that was an oddity to me, but I was liking it. But what led you to the Episcopal faith? Because I know we all grew up.
We all grew up Baptist church, in the Baptist church. And as I said, I was in Sunday school, church, BTU, night service.
Absolutely.
The one thing that I did not learn or hear about a lot in the Baptist church was the love of God and the forgiveness. I didn't hear that. I heard fire, hell, and brimstone.
Look out now.
If you do this, you're going to hell.
Right.
If you do that, you're going to hell. So I went to church with a friend of mine to an Episcopal church. And the minister talked about the love of Christ. And it was during the Easter season, Lent, as we call it.
Yes.
And he talked about how Christ died for us, for all of our sins, that we didn't have any sin because he died for them.
That's
and
right.
we didn't have to pay for them or anything. And it intrigued me. So I started going more, and I took classes. And that's when I learned that the relationship,
Oh.
that you could establish that kind of relationship. The one thing that I may not have told you before is when my mother died, I was extremely angry with God. And I stopped going to church, period.
I remember those days.
And I was sitting with one of the priests, who's my best friend's husband. And he said, when are you going to start going back to church? And I said, don't talk to me about going to church. Because God failed me. Well, he looked at me and he said, and try not to get teary here, he said, you see those roses over there? And I said, yes. He said, which one do you think I would give to Carolyn? That's his wife. And I looked and I said, probably the one that's just perfect, has formed that perfect bud. He said, that's what God does. He takes that perfect rose and brings it home. And I was able at that time to tell God how angry I was. And I still get teary.
It's all good.
But that's started me on the path of being able to say, I'm mad, and still know he loved me.
All right.
So from then on, everything that I do in my life, in my personal life, in my professional life, is because I know that he's there and we're all children of God.
Absolutely.
The one thing that drew me closer to him was in mental health was when my nephew committed suicide.
I remember.
And trying to understand and comfort my sisters and the rest of my family in terms of why it happened. They couldn't understand why it happened. And I got closer to understanding the mind of mental health, of what people are going through. And that intrigued me. So I decided, okay, this is something where I can make a difference. And to everybody who's listening to this, do not believe that just because a person has a mental illness,
All right.
that they are crazy.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you a little joke.
Oh, joke time.
There was this man who car broke down on the side of the road. He had a flat. And he had lost his lug nuts for the tire. And he stopped in front of a sanitarium, and people were standing in the yard. And he's saying to himself, now if I take this tire off, I'm not going to be able to put it back on because I don't have any lug nuts. And the man who was in the sanitarium said, take one off of each wheel and put on there, and you'll be able to drive it.
Which is true.
And he looked and he said, thank you. He said to the guy, you're in a mental hospital. He said, I might have a mental illness, but I'm not crazy.
Amen. Amen.
So we have to remember that they are human and they have feelings and they are still children of God.
And that is very, very powerful, that illustration. And I'm going to tell you why I find it to be powerful, because I do know that you've been nursing, and I do know that you've been doing mental health nursing for quite some time. And I have seen how your faith has kept you grounded in such a field, because it has to. Now, along those same lines, true story. Once again, home on vacation while I'm in the military, and I can't see. I know you know what I'm about to say. I came to visit my mother, who was working at Shands at the time. Shout out to Shands, great program for mental health. And I go up to visit her, and I get to her floor, and I get to the door, and I ring the buzzer. A guy comes to the window, and he says, hey, how you doing? Can I help you? I said, I am here to see Miss Flowers. He goes, oh, well, she's not available right now. She's in the back. And I had a conversation with this man for a good 3 to 4 minutes. And then I hear this voice from the back. Get away from that door. And the guy looks and he's like, well, there's somebody here to see you. Okay, fine. Get away from the door. Go back to your room. And I'm saying to myself, go back to your room? I had a complete conversation with this man. And as you said, if I had met him on the streets, I would have thought there was absolutely nothing wrong with his mental state. But I thank God for you and people like you who are strong, powerful, grounded Christians who are out there helping people who have mental illness, because a lot of people don't understand that you have to have those elements in order to be in such a field. Because as you alluded to, it is the love of God that you display through your work, which I've seen you, and it has pretty much been your ministry all of my life. And that is something powerful. But tell me this much. In your encounters, I know that you've encountered people of different religious backgrounds. individuals. So how would you deal with that? Someone that was of a different religious background, but still trusting in that same God, especially when it came to the mental health field.
When with mental health, you have to take yourself out of the picture and deal with the person. I can't go into a person's room or a person's home who has mental illness and start talking about my faith. The approach that you have to take is where that person is now. If they tell me, I don't believe in God, then that's their prerogative. That's their choice. I don't say, well, you should. I don't get into that area. I talk about what their needs are. What can I do for you? What's going to help you? So when you're working with individuals, I don't care what the situation is, whether mental or physical, you cannot insert your own beliefs and your own thinking into their world. They have their own concept of what's going on. And you can't break that concept sometimes. So you have to be able to deal with that and make them feel secure.
Wow.
If you can't make them feel secure, if I tell a patient you're safe, that's basically my word for them, is you're safe. And the field that I'm in now is a hospice nurse. I deal with families and patients who are dying.
Wow.
And I tell them, I'm here, you're driving the train. Because I can't tell them how to die, and I can't tell them how to feel. So you take your cues from that person. You don't go in and say, you've got 3 months to live, you need to do this and you need to do that. You go in and say, what can I do to make things comfortable for you and for your family?
Wow. That has to be a very difficult time, not only for you, but also for the family. I had a young man on the show who said there's he would call it the book of Alma, right? And because that is your life and the life that you're displaying, you may be the only Christ, the only God, the only spirit of love that this person may ever see. So I commend you for what you do. Absolutely. It is much needed service. I believe that the families are very thankful for having you. I know that there are many people out there very thankful for what you've done over the decades in nursing, also in your ministry, and displaying the love of God in everything that you do. Miss Flowers, I cannot express my gratitude for you coming on to the podcast today and enlightening us to how our faith should be the foundation for us when we're dealing with people with mental illness. I would like to ask everybody to take the time, if you would like to know more about faith and mental illness, or in other words, the spiritual battleground, you could reach out to Miss Alma Flowers through the Union of Black Episcopalians at St. Philip's Episcopal Church. And with that being said, I'd also like to say, as we come to a close, I had a very, very beautiful experience today in my travels around the city to different churches. Today I visited Bishop Richardson at the New Life Evangelistic Center over on Lone Star Road, and I'm here to tell you, he had an excellent message. It was very loving, very open, and very inviting. So if you have an opportunity, you guys check him out also. But I would also like to close on, hey, we as people, we need to remember to support your local NAACP. Go to NAACP.com. You find almost everything you need within the community, or any questions that you have can be answered all there also. Hey, and also remember to donate to the Freedom Fund, right? Every year we have the Freedom Fund lunch and dinner, and we will like to see you there. Once again, I am Reverend Kenneth Badger from an Initial Faith. Peace. Be blessed.